Oi! Yes! Dude, it's been a long week off for your Uncle Weezy, man. I am really happy to be back. I don't know about you guys if you're happy to have me back or not, but let me tell you something. Right after the last UFC card, I tested positive for COVID the very next morning. And battled that all of last week, but as of Saturday, I am COVID negative. I am ready to rock. My immune system 10-8'd that shit, and I am back to break down 15 fights for you guys. 15 fights we got on Saturday's UFC Vegas 44 card, headlined by Jose Aldo versus Rob Font. Going to be a banger of a bantamweight main event there, you guys. But we've got so much work to do here, but I am really happy to be back with you guys. It always sucks when we have a week off and we don't have any UFC to bet on or any fighters to cheer for, but we're back this week. Can't wait to get into the stats of all 15 fights with you guys. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. We got my guy Bout Better, the first in the room, saying reciprocity. Better learned in person, but should be respected online. Absolutely. It should be respected everywhere. Reciprocity is a very good thing. When people do things for you, it's nice to step up and do things for them. Let them know that their contributions are being appreciated. And I appreciate you being in here with us today, Bout Better. Big up yourself, brother. Good to see you here. We got my guy Big Brady in the house saying, let's go, Weezy. I did a main event breakdown on DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel. You guys got to check out. The link to that video is in the description of this video. We went about 45 minutes into the main event, Aldo versus Font. Really did a great job breaking down that fight. So if you want a little bit further in-depth look at the main event of this UFC Vegas 44 card, check out the description of this video. Click on the link over there to DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel and check out the work that we did. And we got my guy Andy MG in the room saying, oi, yes, I hope you enjoyed Thanksgiving, Uncle Weezy. Now let's stuff these bookies' asses like some turkey. Let's get it, man. I want some money back from the bookies. I got rinsed last time out. November was a rough betting month for me, but we got 3 more cards to finish out this year strong, you guys. And it starts this Saturday, and it actually starts tonight on Just the Tip, as we're going to break down all 15 of these fights from a statistical perspective. Thank you, Andy, for hanging out. We got Bout Better saying OMG. We've got, hang on just a sec, lost something there. We got DFS by the Numbers saying 15 fights, crazy. And Bout Better saying, you got this, Weezy, no pun intended. Yeah, man, the lungs hurt earlier this week, dude. But you know what, man? I'm making a full recovery and I'm ready to rock. And Andy's saying, oh, man, glad you're feeling better, Weezy. Yeah, thanks, dude. It was a bad cold for me. It's all it was. I didn't even have that bad of a headache. I didn't lose my sense of smell, sense of taste, stuff like that. But I was pretty exhausted, coughing a lot. And, it was just the symptoms were like a bad cold. So I got a pretty low viral load. I was lucky. I hope everybody else that's dealing with COVID right now has as easy of a time as I had with it, because I know it can be really nasty when it hits you the wrong way. And we got Smooth Cat saying, glad you're back, glad you're better. Keep doing great things. Keep doing great things and keep showing up for my live stream, Smooth Cat. I appreciate you, brother. You're always real supportive, man, and I appreciate that. And we got Bailey Ripplinger saying, let's go, Weezy, my new favorite MMA show. I appreciate that, Bailey. I love this show too, man. I love breaking down all fights from a statistical perspective. I love giving you guys the ass shaving of the week and telling stories and giving you guys parlays. Just the Tip, Tuesday nights, 10 o'clock Central Time is the highlight of my week, I can assure you, Bailey. And thank you too, Weezy. Hope the fam is well too. Yeah, fam's well. I didn't get to see them over Thanksgiving because obviously I was quarantined for a week, trying not to get anybody else sick, and I didn't, which is good. Charlie saying, hope you're well, Weezy. Who have you got in the 270 main event as an early pick? The 270 main event is Oliveira versus Poirier. Oh, boy. Yeah, I don't even know yet. I really do have to look more into that. But my early lean will probably be Poirier, but I gotta look way more into that. And Rex Lee saying Weezy's the Chuck Norris of COVID. That is high praise, Rex. I really appreciate that, man. And we got Boris Linez saying, "Oi, Boris, oi yourself, man. Thanks for hanging out. COVID ain't got nothing on Weezy." We got the Alex Ramirez, the general, in the room. What's up, man? We got Kawa Sexy saying it's 5 a.m. in Belgium right now, but I need to hear this live. I appreciate that. Big ups to everybody in Belgium. I have some family of my girlfriend that lives just south of the Belgian border there in Lille, France. And Belgium is an absolutely gorgeous country. I got to get up there. Kawa, thank you for joining us at this crack of dawn hour for you guys. I'm already on my first Paloma of the evening because right now in Chicago, it's 10 p.m. Central Time. So you've already gotten your sleep in, Kawa, but it's time to break down some fights. And we got the Cuban Assassin right now telling us that we need 2 ass shavings tonight since we were off last week. And we got Uncle Weezy, says Alex Ramirez, and you look better than Rang at Capper comparison picks. Oh, is he all messed up with the COVID? I hope not, man. I like watching Capper comparison picks videos. Those guys do a great job and they're real supportive. So shout out to Capper comparison picks. And Tiffany saying Weezy's the best. So happy to hear you're feeling better. Thank you for entertaining me while delivering the facts. I appreciate you, Tiffany. Yeah, and I do feel better. Thank God. Thank Jah, I should say. You know, he gave me the strength to get through this COVID, and now he's got to give me the strength to break down all 15 fights. We got Dan Goldstein in the room saying Uncle Weezy shaved the COVID's ass, and Clay Loizo saying hola, and Matthew Chalk saying oi, and we got my guy AJ MMA Betting that I did the DraftKings show with on Pub Sports Radio earlier today, 6 p.m. Central Time. The link to that show also in the description of this video, you guys. Check out my guy AJ's content. He's always putting out good stuff. He works really hard, and he's got some really deep insight into the fights, man. AJ, thanks for hanging out, man. Appreciate it. Saying, I know this sharp guy. Keep up the great work, Uncle Weezy. You do the same, brother, because you got some great work that you do as well. And Bout Better saying, we from Chicago, we kill everything. You got that right, Bout Better. I know that you said you met me in person before. We got to get together sometime, man. And we got Dan saying, so what do we think of Catch a Beating being almost 4-1 against Robertson? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think the Catch a Beating is going to spend about 90% of that fight on her back underneath Jillian Robertson. But the 10% that she's above ground and on her feet, she's going to be very dangerous. So I can't wait for that fight. But I don't know if I'm running to the window to bet Catch a Beating at plus money right now. Big time plus money, but what I might do is maybe play the KO prop for Catch a Beating if I can get something better than 6-1. But I don't know, man. It's Jillian Robertson controls huge percentages of her fights, so and that is Catch a Beating's weakness. So I don't know. Kawa saying nice, yes, and Bout Better saying a Paloma. Describe. So this is Jarritos grapefruit soda. We got some fresh lime juice, a pinch of salt. And I got some Reposado tequila in here, 100% agave, of course, because, you know, we don't take any shortcuts over here at Shea Weezy. And Matthew Chalk saying, tasty fights this month. Yeah, you got that right, Matthew. There's no doubt about it. A lot of great fights. And this pay-per-view card next week is fire. And then after that, we got the Dawkins Lewis card, which will close off the year, which has got some really fun fights on it as well. So, yes. And then my guy Charlie saying, oi, Aldo takes this, Weezy. I'm not going to argue with you. I like Font just a little bit more than I like Aldo. But I actually think the betting line value is on Aldo at plus 120. Very, very good main event. Can't wait to break that one down. And is Vivid going to play a part this weekend? Vivid? I don't know what that means, Bout Better. But yes, you guys, my guy Smooth Jimmy is probably going to be ready to start breaking down this card for you guys here. So let's see if he is out of makeup, if he's ready to bust out that big smile of his in that lock of the week. Oh, yeah. You guys, Yeah. And COVID going to play a part this weekend, not the porn channel Vivid. I was wondering what you were talking about there. Yeah, COVID will probably play a part. Everybody's getting it right now. I know I just got it. I know a couple other people in the space have it. And, it's just going around. It's that time of year. This is the time of year that the cold viruses, the flu viruses, pneumonia starts to rear its ugly head and kind of make its way around the population. And COVID is very similar to those kinds of viruses. So we're going to see a raise in COVID. We're going to see a raise in colds, and it's all going to get lumped together. But yeah, I think it's going to be playing a part for these last three cards, unfortunately. Hopefully we won't have too many cancellations. But yeah, you guys, I've got the stats for you over here. So let's see. Bam, there we go. 15 fights, you guys. Let's try to get this done in under 2 hours. We got a lot of work to do. And we got my guy Metalingus in the room. Just wanted to say what's up. Let's go, Weezy, says Metalingus. Let's go, Metalingus. Let's go balls deep into all 15 fights on the UFC Vegas 44 card and see if we can find some lines, see if we can find some angles, see if we can find a way to stack a bunch of cash tickets like flapjacks this Saturday, you guys. Let's start it out with the curtain jerker here. Louis Smolka versus Vince Morales. So we have got Smolka, 1 year younger at 30, 2 inches taller, and it'll be Vince Morales that has a 2-inch reach advantage. We got Vince coming out of Free Jitsu, Timo Yama for Louis Smolka. Louis Smolka's got a considerate experience advantage here with 9 more professional fights, almost 100 more minutes of professional cage time, and about 3 more years as a pro. Both of these guys' average fight time lies between 8 and 10 minutes. And we see that Louis Smolka has 9 more fights at the UFC level. So while Vince Morales fought 40% of his career at the UFC level, it's been about 60% here. Actually, 5 out of 9, so 55% for Louis Smolka. So very, very experienced guy in Smolka here. He's got the experience edge. He's fought twice as much time in the UFC cage at 146 minutes compared to 76 for Vince Morales. 8-7 record for Smolka, winning record over 15 fights, while Vince Morales is 2-4 at the UFC level. If we look at how these guys are finishing fights, Louis Smolka, you guys, is a very good finisher, and he's an equal opportunity finisher. He can knock you out, and he can submit you, as he has an 88% finish rate overall. He's finished 15 of his 17 wins inside the distance, so that would be 8 by knockout and 7 by submission. So very impressive. While Vince Morales in his own right is a good finisher, having finished 7 of his 10 pro wins inside the distance. If we look at how these guys are losing fights, in 12 combined losses professionally for Morales and Smolka, we've got 3 and 3. So 6 of those 12 losses have happened inside the distance for a 50% overall rate. Louis Smolka has been submitted 3 times, and Vince Morales has been submitted twice and knocked out once. If we go to the striking numbers here, you guys, we're going to see that the numbers are fairly close. It's going to be Smolka who lands a little bit more per minute, who's a little bit more accurate. Vince Morales showing just a little more power at 0.6% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed compared to 0.3% for Smolka. And he's getting about twice as many knockdowns per 15 minutes is Morales at 0.39 per 15 minutes in comparison to 0.2 for Smolka. Both these guys have been knocked down a very similar amount of times. They're both about the same in terms of their chin. And Vince Morales just a little bit better defensively. The numbers show Morales throwing more volume on the feet, offering 11 significant strikes a minute, while Smolka throws about 9.55. However, Morales spends a much higher percentage of his time in the cage at striking range, so you would expect him to be throwing more significant strike attempts per minute. Really, I think the volume advantage on the feet is going to go to Smolka, to be honest with you. I think the numbers are just a little bit misleading here in this case, because as we see, if we go to the grappling stats, we're going to see Louis Smolka is in control time positions almost 58% of the time, while for Vince Morales, it's less than 8% of the time. So that volume that looks like it occurs there on paper, that volume advantage doesn't really translate when you look at how much time these guys spend on the feet respectively. Vince Morales doesn't really go after takedowns. He's only attempted 4 takedowns in 6 UFC fights and only gotten one of them. But it is important to note that he does have a wrestling background. Vince Morales was an Idaho State champion back in high school, but we don't see him use the wrestling much. He prefers to use the wrestling in reverse in order to keep the fight standing where he's the most comfortable. But Luis Smolka has done a good job getting the fight to the ground, you guys. 15 UFC fights, 48 takedown attempts. He's getting 3/8 of those takedown attempts at 37.5%, averaging 1.84 takedown for 15 minutes and 1.94 submission attempts for 15 minutes. So when he gets the fight to the ground, he's very aggressive there. He's definitely trying to finish the fight there. And he spends, like I said, 58% of his time in control time positions for and against. So, we can expect that this fight will hit the ground at some point because Morales's takedown defense has only been 50% thus far in the UFC. However, his get-up game has been excellent as he's only allowed 6.18% control time in 76 minutes. So that would be about 4 minutes of control time on 7 takedowns. So it's very good. Morales, when he does get taken down, he gets back up. So, but Smolka is very aggressive. He throws a ton of volume, and his last 5 fights, as we'll see when we get to the last 5 here, have all finished inside the distance. So Smolka either gets submitted or he knocks you out or submits you, but he puts a pace on and kind of forces this brawl, especially with a lot of grappling transitions and scrambling. And usually somebody winds up tapping out by the end of it. As we can see here, a win by submission over Suma Derji, a loss by submission to Matt Schnell, a win by knockout over Ryan McDonald, a loss by submission to Casey Kenny, a win by knockout over Jose Quinones. So when we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, we're going to see Morales has got a little bit of an advantage overall when it comes to the ratio at 2.14 in comparison to 1.22 for Smolka, but it's Smolka who's fighting the more experienced competition. When we look at their wins, Smolka's wins just a little bit better on the aggregate than Morales's, while his ratio is just a little bit smaller. He's fighting more experienced competition here. And both of these guys losing the guys that have winning records, but it's Smolka who's losing or to the more experienced competition here. When we look at Vince Morales, he's 2-4 in the UFC. He has wins over Ayman Zahabi by decision and Draco Rodriguez by decision. He's been knocked out by Chris Gutierrez, and he's lost unanimous decisions to Benito Lopez and Song Yadong, and then he also got choked out by Domingo Pilardi on the Contender Series. So I like Smolka's pace. I like the volume that he brings. I like how he doesn't let people get comfortable. I think Morales is at his best when his opponent stands in front of him and just kind of does not much. And that's not going to be Luis Smolka. I think Smolka is going to pressure this dude. I think he's probably going to drown him. And when this fight gets to the ground, I think Smolka is going to be extremely dangerous, hunting for submissions, trying to finish the fight. I see this being a very exciting fight, a great way to start out this card. I'm picking Luis Smolka by second round submission, you guys. On to the next. We got Alex Morono against Mickey Gall here, you guys. Very, very interesting stylistic matchup. So Mickey Gall, 2 years younger, 3 inches taller, and has a 2-inch reach advantage, and he fights out of both stances here. So I like the tail to the tape advantages for Mickey Gall. It's going to be Alex Morono with a significant experience advantage, though, guys. He's got 18 more professional fights, about 150 more minutes in the pro cage, and 5 more years as a pro. But it's been Mickey Gall who's fought 90% of his pro career at the UFC level, while Alex Morono has 14 UFC level fights, so he's fought half of his career at the UFC level and has almost 100 more minutes in the UFC cage than Mickey Gall in only 5 more fights. So if we look at how these guys finish fights, Alex Morono is an equal opportunity finisher. He is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. However, he never uses it. He prefers to knock people out. However, we are looking at 6 wins in his career by submission, 6 wins in his career by knockout, 8 wins in his career by decision, while Mickey Gall has finished 6 of his 7 wins inside the distance by submission. He's never knocked anybody out, but Mickey Gall's striking has improved by leaps and bounds over the years that he's been in the UFC, and we're seeing this guy hit a lot harder now and being a lot more dangerous when he's standing. In terms of how these guys get finished, 7 losses for Morono, 2 of them by knockout, and then Mickey Gall has been knocked out in 1 of his 3 pro losses. So only 3 of the 10 combined losses between Gall and Morono have happened inside the distance. But this still, in my opinion, could be a sneaky inside the distance bet because, you guys, Mickey Gall's conditioning is horrendous. If you want to see some of the worst conditioning you've ever seen, you got to watch Mickey Gall against Diego Sanchez, man. He looked absolutely terrible and got finished by Diego Sanchez in the second round and was completely out of gas in that fight with about 4.5 minutes left in the second round. It was disgraceful. And then we did see his conditioning again abandon him in the Mike Perry fight. So Mickey Gall is very dangerous early in fights, but because he throws 100% into all of his strikes and because he does try to sell out for the wrestling against certain opponents, that gas tank does not last forever. I know he cuts a lot of weight to make 170, so we could see some problems for Mickey Gall if this fight gets extended into the late second and into the third rounds. I think we're going to see Alex Morono really start to put a pace on him. But if we look at the striking numbers between these guys, we're going to see that Alex Morono is going to be way more likely to be the minute winner on the feet, you guys. He throws twice as much volume as Mickey Gall does. 12.02 significant strike attempts per minute for Morono, only 5.59 for Gall. And Gall's opponents throw more than he does at 6.61, while Alex Morono is throwing 12 significant strikes a minute for every 9 that his opponents are throwing per minute. So he's seriously out-voluming his opponents. It's going to be Gall who's more powerful and more accurate here, at about 4% more accurate and about 0.8% more powerful in the knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. So it's actually Morono who's averaging 0.29 knockdowns per 15 minutes, while for Gall it's 0.44. And then if we look at the striking defense, it's going to be Morono much better defensively here as he lands about 1.3 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, while Mickey Gall has a negative 1.08 significant strike differential per minute. So just if we look at the aggregate here, and we've got 9 fights for Gall, we've got 14 fights for Alex Morono, the numbers clearly tell us that Alex Morono should be the better minute winner on the feet here. And then you say, well, what about Gall getting the fight to the ground? Well, Mickey Gall's not a great wrestler, you guys. 28.57% takedown percentage, 6 of 21 on his career takedown attempts. So not very efficient, but he's very active once he does get the fight to the ground. He gets 1.32 takedowns for 15 minutes, but he's averaging 2.43 submission attempts per 15 minutes. So once that fight does get to the ground, Mickey Gall is working to try to finish the fight. And he is spending about 60% of his fights in control time positions, while Alex Morono is spending only about 22% of his fights in control time positions. So that's another reason why we see such a big volume discrepancy here, is because Gall's fights have taken place in control time positions such a large percentage of the time, he's more likely to throw less volume. But we still have to note here that Morono throws more volume than his opponents, and Mickey Gall throws less volume than his opponents. So I still do believe that the volume that Morono throws on the feet will be a big ability for him to win minutes while this fight remains on the feet, and that Gall will be most dangerous in the first round when he's at his most powerful. But once he starts throwing all 100% power into all of his strikes, we're going to see him slow down as the fight goes on. So Alex Morono has done a great job of keeping fights standing, But even if this fight does go to the ground, Morono is not going to be out of his depth there. As a result of that, I think this conditioning is a very big sticking piece for me for Gall. It leads me to believe that if you want to bet on Alex Morono, you could even hedge it with a first round bet on Mickey Gall, because I think that might be his only win condition here. I think Gall is improving. He looked fantastic against Jordan Williams. We have seen him win by decision once against Salim Touari, but that's Salim Touari. This is a much, much higher level opponent in Alex Morono. I think if this fight gets past the first round, you're going to see Alex Morono really start to turn it on. I don't see a lot of ways for Gall to win this fight outside of landing a huge strike early, getting this fight to the ground, maybe following Morono to the ground and finding a submission. However, I'm going to pick Alex Morono to win this fight by third round knockout. I think it's going to be attrition. I think it's going to be a great fight. But I do see Alex Morono winning this one fairly comfortably, and I see him getting it done inside the distance, you guys. About better saying, has anybody actually watched Morono's jits? Yeah, well, here's the thing. He's gotten 4 takedowns in 14 fights, so he doesn't actively really try to get into top position here, although we have seen Morono start to wrestle a little bit more in his most recent fights. I think his first 8 or 9 fights, he didn't even attempt a takedown. So we haven't really seen much of it. However, it is there. He is a black belt, and he is known for it, and he's got 6 career wins by submission. So he's definitely got the ability to use it. He kind of just keeps it in his back pocket. And about better saying, we all know Gall has that submission grappling. Yes, he does. However, 28.57% on his takedowns, only 6 takedowns completed in 9 fights. So yes, Gall is good. But if he wants the fight on the ground, is there any guarantee he's going to be able to get it there and keep it there? Even though Morono's takedown defense is only 52%, he's still in those 12 takedowns that he's been taken down, has only been controlled less than 14% of his UFC career, which is how many minutes? 155 minutes. So that would be about 22 minutes of control on 25 takedown attempts. That's not that much. He does have a good takedown attempts. And not only that, very important here, he's never had a submission attempted against him, even though he's been taken down 12 times and he's been controlled for, like I say, about 22 minutes. He's never once had a submission attempted against him. So Alex Morono's jiu-jitsu does seem to be there, but like I said, it seems like he's just kind of keeping it in his back pocket. But the pick is going to be Alex Morono by third round knockout, you guys. And we got another really, I don't know what is going on with this fight, guys. To me, this fight makes absolutely no sense. Azamat Murzakonov is an undersized light heavyweight at 205 pounds. He's only 5'10". He only has a 71-inch reach, and he's very small for the division. So when his opponent, Felipe Lins, dropped out, who was going to be trying to cut down to 205 pounds for I believe the first time in his career, the UFC decided to ask Azamat if he wanted to step up to heavyweight and fight a heavyweight on short notice, and then not just fight any heavyweight, fight a 6'4" guy who has an 80-inch reach and who cuts to make 265 pounds in Jared Vanderaa. So Azamat Murzakonov signed on the dotted line to take this fight against a true heavyweight, a massive heavyweight on short notice here. It's a very interesting fight, you guys. Like I said, we started here with the tail of the tape. It's going to be Jared Vanderaa, who's 6 inches taller here. It's going to be Jared Vanderaa, who has a whopping 9-inch reach advantage. And Murzakonov is a southpaw. Vanderaa is orthodox, training out of Team Quest, while Murzakonov fighting out of the K-Dojo Warrior Tribe in Russia. It's going to be Vanderaa with the experience advantage here. He's got 8 more professional fights, 124 minutes of professional cage time. But it's been Azamat Murzakonov, who's been a pro for over 5 years longer than Jared Vanderaa here. So, yeah, that means that Azamat Murzakonov has had less than one fight per year over his 12-year MMA career, while Jared Vanderaa has been super active, fighting almost 3 times per year. So, 4 UFC fights for Vanderaa, only one for Murzakonov. It was a contender series fight that he beat Mateus Scheffel. Finishing rates: Murzakonov 80%, mostly by knockout. Vanderaa 83%, more than half by KO than submission. So, it's 7 wins by knockout and 3 by submission. So 10 of the 12 wins for Jared Vanderaa have come inside the distance. In their 6 combined losses, 4 of them have come inside the distance. 2 of them by submission for Jared Vanderaa, 2 of them by knockout for Jared Vanderaa. So he's been finished a variety of ways, has Vanderaa. If we look at the striking stats here, we don't have much because it's a very small sample size from Murzakonov. Only 1 fight, and it ended in the first round. But he lands 3 per minute, absorbs 1.33. While Vanderaa throws a ton of volume here, landing 4.5 a minute and absorbing 5.24, out-voluming his opponents 9 to 8.67, 50% striking accuracy, but 39% striking defense for Vanderaa. That is not good. He absolutely does rely on his chin, but he has a very strong chin. Jared Vanderaa is very durable. Now, Murzakonov, we have to talk about this guy's conditioning. It's god-awful. It's god-awful. So first of all, Murzakonov, like I say, he's kind of a small, light heavyweight. But if you watch him fight, he's very active even when he's not throwing punches. He's bouncing in and out. It takes a lot of energy. And when he throws his strikes, it's when he's bouncing in and he kind of brings all that momentum with him and he throws 100% of his power into all of his strikes. He'll try to knock you out with the very first strike that he throws at you. He's that kind of a fighter. And if we go over here to the Tapology page, we do have to make a note for Murzakonov of how quickly he finishes his fights, because it's very important if we're looking at a fight doesn't go to decision bet for this fight, which we should be looking at. So Azamat Murzakonov here, we see the win over Scheffel 3 minutes round 1, the win over Fakhreddin and Brave 3:47 round 1, a decision win over Guto and Ascench, then 1:35 round 1, 50 seconds of round 1, 1 minute of round 1, 1:52 of round 1. Here's a 2-round. This was only 2 5-minute rounds here. It was a unanimous decision win for Fight Nights Global 42 over Alexei Sidorenko, who's 0-1. And he was exhausted at the end of that one. 20 seconds of round 1 and 10 seconds of round 1. So this guy fights like he's double parked. He tries to get in and out of there as soon as possible. But if the fight does get extended, his conditioning is not there. And Jared Vanderaa is not the kind of guy that's just going to go away in 30 seconds. Usually you have to take him down, get on top of him, and pound him out with ground and pound. And Murzakonov does get takedowns, and he does have a decent top game. But my worry is that if he doesn't get Vanderaa out of there early, that size difference is going to make a big deal here. That reach difference is going to make a big deal. The great chin of Vanderaa and his ability to take a beating without going down is going to – all these things matter because Murzakonov has really only got a couple of minutes to get the job done. I haven't seen any kind of indication to suggest that this guy is going to last anything, going to have anything for Vanderaa after 3 minutes of this fight is over with. So I love the fight doesn't go to decision for this one, you guys. Like I say, in the 6 combined losses, 2/3 of them have finished inside the distance. So, at around -200, that looks good. I know it's a little more juiced than that, but we also have to add in the fact that, Murzakonov is not just kind of like coming up 1 weight class. This is like coming up 2 because Murzakonov is already small for a light heavyweight, so he's probably not going to weigh much more than 220 on fight day, but he's going to be, over 40 pounds lighter in that cage than Vanderaa is. And that's going to make a big difference. Vanderea's takedown defense has been terrible. But like I say, if you don't finish him in the first, I don't like your chances. So I think that you can bet Azamat to win in round 1. I think that's his best win condition. I think that's how he gets it done, if he gets it done. But if he doesn't finish him in the first and Vanderea's around in the second and still has his faculties, I think this fight's going to get real nasty real quick for Azamat here. And I think we're going to see someone get finished inside the distance. My pick will be Azamat by first round knockout, but I do have a small half unit bet on Jared Vanderaa at plus 187, I believe, or plus 184. I just think that if this fight gets extended past the first, he's going to be extremely live, and you cannot ignore a 9-inch reach advantage, a 6-inch height advantage, and like a 50-pound weight advantage here. So I think that if you want to take a shot on Jared Vanderaa as an underdog and realize that if he does get out of the first, that he's going to be live, that's a great way to go. But I also do think that the most likely result, you guys, is Azamat by first round knockout. So let's move on to the next fight. We got Claudio Puelles going up against Greutzemacher here. So this is an interesting one too. I'll probably be doing a balls deep breakdown on this one tomorrow. I have a bet on this fight, and I'll tell you what it is after we break down the stats. We've got Puelles here. He's going to be 10 years younger than Grits. 25 years of age for Puelles, 35 for Grits. Claudio, 3 inches taller and has a 4-inch reach advantage here, and he's a southpaw. So I love all the tail of the tape advantages here that Puelles has. It's going to be an experience advantage for Greutzemacher, though, as he has 7 more professional fights, about 50 more minutes of professional cage time, and about 5 more years as a pro. And he's got 2 more fights at the UFC level in Puelles and about 10 more minutes of UFC cage time. If we look at how these guys are finishing fights, Puelles 70% finish rate overall, 67% finish rate for Greutzemacher and his wins. So Grits has finished 10 of his 15 wins, while Puelles 7 of his 10. And then if we look at how these guys are losing fights, in their 6 combined losses, 5 of them have come inside the distance. So this really, I love this fight to finish inside the distance, as both of these guys have better than 2/3 finish rates in their wins, and they both have been finished in their 4 combined UFC losses. All 4 of them have come inside the distance. When we look at the striking stats, you guys, we're going to see a significant striking advantage on paper for Greutzemacher here, as he's landing almost 7 significant strikes a minute and only absorbing 5.35. Pretty accurate up here at 56%. And Puelles is getting outlanded by about 1.3 significant strikes per minute. So he's got a negative significant strike differential here. He's much less accurate, hasn't shown any power, and he's shown that he's chinny, being knocked down twice in 149 significant strikes absorbed. I think as long as this fight stays standing, you guys, Greutzemacher is going to have a huge advantage. Puelles does not like being pressured, and that's exactly what Greutzemacher does. Puelles has shown the ability to be hurt to the body, and Greutzemacher throws a lot to the body. And the fact that he's constantly pressuring makes those body shots even more valuable as the fight goes on. Greutzemacher is just a really tough guy to deal with on the feet because of the pressure, the pace, and the volume that he puts on you. And he does work all the targets. He works the legs, he works the body and the head. So I think as long as this fight stays standing, that Greutzemacher is going to be looking very good here. But here's the problem, is that Greutzemacher is getting out-controlled by his opponents in the UFC. And this is over a 6-fight sample size, you guys. He's only amassed 4% control time, but he's been controlled 30% of his UFC career. So his fights are taking place in control time positions about 34% of the time, and about 89% of that control time is him being controlled, while 11% of it is Greutzemacher controlling his opponent. And we see that Puelles, over his 4 UFC fights, is out-controlling his opponents at a 51.5 to 11% clip. He's getting his takedowns at almost a 50% rate. He's getting 3.35 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents at almost a 5-to-1 ratio. So while Greutzemacher is going to be winning on the feet, we do see that Greutzemacher's takedown defense has not been great at 61.1%, and we have seen Puelles go after the wrestling over and over and over again. So I do see a great opportunity here for Puelles to win minutes using his wrestling, using his grappling, his submission game, and his top control. So if we look at the strength of schedule stats here, it's going to be Greutzemacher, who's fought the much better competition, as he's fought the better win-loss competition here at 1.29 ratio, comparison to 0.6 for Puelles. And his opponents have been 4 times as experienced in the UFC as Puelles' opponents. And if we look at the wins, it's going to be Greutzemacher with not as good of a ratio in his wins, but he's also beating the way more experienced competition. And Grits is losing to guys with winning records, average record of 4-3, while Puelles' loss has come to a guy with only 1 win and 3 losses, Martin Bravo. So anyway, yeah, I like Puelles in this fight, you guys. I've got a bet on him at plus 100. I think this line is going to flip. I think we're going to see by the time fight day comes, Puelles maybe a pick'em or a minus 120 favorite. But I think there's a lot of ways for him to win this fight. Claudio has been training at Sanford. He's still only 25 years old, and he's getting better. While Greutzemacher, while he's good at what he does, he is fairly predictable. And if he hasn't shored up that takedown defense, I think he's going to spend a lot of this fight on his back. And that's not going to be a good place for him to be, because Puelles does have very good leg locks. He's also got really good rear naked chokes. He's constantly fishing for submissions, and I think he'll be very dangerous on the ground. I'm picking Claudio Puelles to win this one by second round submission. All right, let's see. We've got the next fight. For you guys who like man meat, we've got Alonzo Menifield versus William Knight. Both of these guys look like Chippendales strippers, especially with William Knight's horrible tapology picture, which I will put up on the screen here for you guys, because, like I say, it's not a William Knight fight week unless we put that god-awful attempted leather outfit of his up there. What is going on with that hat? Is it a visor? I don't know. What are those bungee cords around his biceps? Don't ask your Uncle Weezy. I have no idea. I would never wear something like that. You see me, you know, when I get myself on screen here, I try to look good for you guys, you know. I don't know what William Knight is thinking there, but I do know when you look at that look in William Knight's eyes that he's probably thinking he wants to murder somebody. And maybe it's because he's pissed off his mom dressed him that way. I don't know. But this guy's is going to be a fun one. Both of these guys throw heat. Both of them have a ton of power. And both of them are really good athletes too. So it's going to be a really fun one to break down. We're going to see Menifield being the bigger guy here. But both of these guys are fairly old already for prospects, with only 13 and 12 fights respectively. We do see that William Knight's 33 years old, Menifield 34 years old. It's going to be Menifield, who's 2 inches taller and has a 3-inch reach advantage. He's training out of Fortis and Sakeson martial arts, while we got William Knight training out of Thornton martial arts. You know, the experience numbers here are almost identical, except for the fact that Menifield's been doing this about 2.5 years longer as a pro, and Menifield has 3 more fights at the UFC level and a couple more minutes in the UFC cage. But Knight's average fight time a little bit longer. Both of these guys are fantastic finishers, you guys. We see that Menifield has got an 91% finish rate, so he's finished 10 of his 11 wins, and William Knight has finished 9 of his 10 wins. So in their 21 combined wins, 19 of them have finished inside the distance. So these guys have an over 90% combined finish rate in their wins. And in their 4 losses, they've been finished half the time. So you got to believe that this fight probably goes to decision less than 1 out of 3 times, just based on those numbers that I just gave you. So this does feel like a fight doesn't go to decision bet. But these guys have seen the scorecards, as we see that Menifield has finished 5 of his 6 UFC wins, and William Knight 3 of 4. So in their 10 UFC combined wins, 8 of them have been inside the distance. So that's still a really good number. If we look at the striking stats here, and we've got enough of a sample size to kind of lean on these numbers a little bit, we're going to see Menifield with 4.01 significant strikes landed per minute, only 3.4 absorbed, while William Knight also lands more than he absorbs, at landing 3.55 and only absorbing 2.65. But William Knight, while he's incredibly accurate at 72.7% and showing a decent power number here, the problem is that he's showing 35% striking defense. And against somebody that hits as hard as Alonzo Menifield, that is not good. And we do see Menifield up here at 53% striking defense. So I feel a lot better saying that Menifield's got an advantage on the feet here, because both of these guys have power, but it's going to be Menifield with the 2-inch height advantage, the 3-inch reach advantage, and the better defensive striking. You know, if he's moving his head a little bit more, if he's staying out of range a little bit more, and William Knight is spending a lot of time blocking punches with his face, that is a very bad recipe for longevity in this division, fighting guys like Alonzo Menifield. In terms of the grappling numbers, you guys, we're going to see that Alonzo Menifield's fights have been taking place in control time positions about 32% of the time. William Knight's fights have been taking place in control time position about 52% of the time. But it is Knight who's being out-controlled by his opponents at almost a 3-to-1 ratio here. But Knight's getting takedowns at a very efficient pace here, 53%. And he's got 40% takedown defense. So that's not good. But Menifield doesn't really go for the takedowns that often. But Menifield has been very efficient in the grappling exchanges here. I want to note this, that Menifield has only attempted 8 takedowns in 8 fights, but he's had 19 attempted against him. But despite the fact that his opponents are out takedown attempting him at about a 2.5-to-1 ratio, it's Alonzo Menifield who's out controlling his opponents at a 3-to-1 ratio. So while I like the numbers from Menifield on the feet, what I like even more about the grappling numbers here is that I don't necessarily see a path for William to win a ton of minutes on the ground here, because Alonzo Menifield's 84% takedown defense has held up really well thus far. And while we've seen him be controlled by a guy like Devin Clark sells out for the wrestling and goes for it over and over and over again, and brings the kind of gas tank that he can push that pace for a full 3 rounds. William Knight has attempted 3 takedowns per fight, but he's not getting a lot of control time off of those takedowns. As we see, only 13% control time, you know, that's about 6.5 minutes of control time on 15 takedown attempts on 8 takedowns. So even if Knight does get a takedown, I don't think he's going to be winning a lot of minutes on the ground here, as Menifield has an excellent get-up game, is very, very strong, very good takedown defense, very athletic. He's going to be the bigger, stronger guy here, and that's saying something against somebody as big and strong as William Knight here. So if we look at the strength of schedule stats, we're going to see that it's Menifield fighting the much more experienced competition here at 9.5 total fights to 1.8 for Knight, while Knight's ratio just a little bit better than Menifield's. But yeah, Menifield's wins are better and his losses are better, you guys. So it's Menifield who's fought the much better competition. Menifield is bigger. He's got a little bit of an experience advantage here. Both of these guys are fantastic finishers. I think the striking numbers favor Menifield, and I almost think that the grappling numbers do too as well. So you guys, the pick is going to be Alonzo Menifield, and I think he's going to get it done in the second round by knockout. I do like this spot for Menifield a good amount here, you guys. Next fight, we've got Mallory Martin going up against Cheyanne Vlismas. Cheyanne Vlismas, formerly known as Cheyanne Bays, and then formerly known before that as Cheyanne Vlismas. And when you have such a beautiful Greek name like Vlismas, I mean, listen to how that rolls off the tongue. Vlismas. Beautiful name, beautiful girl. Why did she change it to something like Buys? Come on, man. So she's done the right thing, you guys. I don't know if her and JP are broken up. It's none of my business, okay? But she's got the great Greek last name again, one of the many reasons to like this young lady. And she's going to be fighting a very tough girl. I mean, there's going to be some crazy in the cage, you guys. Mallory Martin's a little bit crazy, and Cheyanne Vlismas just a little bit crazy, maybe even crazy enough to follow a bitch home after a fight. So I am liking this one. I think it's going to be a pretty fun fight to watch here, you guys, in the 115-pound strawweight division. We're going to see that Mallory Martin is 1 year older than Cheyanne here. She's going to have a 1-inch height advantage, and the reach is going to be identical. Cheyanne fights out of both stances, coming out of Fortis MMA, while Mallory Martin is fighting up there in Colorado at Elevation Fight Team. It's going to be Martin with 3 more professional fights, about 15 more minutes of cage time as a pro, and about 1 more year as a pro. So just a little bit of a tail of the tape advantage for Martin, just a tiny experience advantage for Martin here, and 1 more fight at the UFC level as well for Martin, but very close in the tail of the tape and experience numbers. If we look at how these girls finish fights, Mallory Martin has finished 4 of her 7 pro wins inside the distance, 2 by knockout, 2 by submission. While Cheyanne, in her, well, it says that she's finished 1/3 of her wins by knockout, but I'm only showing her with 2 wins here, so there's something wrong with my stats. I think may have had somebody else in here besides Vlismas. Let's see, Vlismas, a 6-2 record. So yeah, she's finished 2 of her pro wins here by knockout. So that's 6-2 there. And she's 2-1 in the UFC. Gotten her only UFC wins have been by knockout. So we do see that in the combined losses here, we've had Mallory Martin be submitted once. No shame in that. It was Virna Jandiroba, a multiple Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. While Vlismas has never been finished. If we look, we don't have much of a sample size here, but we do see Mallory Martin as being outlanded by over 1.5 significant strikes a minute here, while Vlismas is showing very nice striking numbers, 4.32 landed per minute and only 1.77 absorbed. She's showing really nice striking defenses, Vlismas, at 64%. While 58.5% for Mallory Martin is also very good. And it's been Martin who's just a little more accurate here, but we have seen the power out of Vlismas, and we have seen Martin be knocked down before. So definitely a path for Vlismas to land a big shot as we see Mallory Martin get knocked down by Hannah Cyphers here. So Mallory's been good with the wrestling when she goes to it, you guys. 11 takedown attempts in 4 fights, and she's gotten 7 of them. 63% takedown accuracy. She's averaging 3.37 per 15 minutes and getting out-controlled about 14% to 17%. So she's being out-controlled by about 3%. But that's a little bit concerning, you guys, seeing as her opponents have only attempted 4 takedowns and Martin has attempted 11. So even though she's attempting almost 3 times as many takedowns as her opponents are, she's actually being out-controlled by a little bit. But once again, that control time that she gave up was largely in the Jandiroba fight. And, you know, there's levels to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Jandiroba is at about the top of the division there with Mackenzie Dern. So, like I say, no shame in that. Vlismas has shown the ability to be controlled as her takedown defense has only been 60% thus far. She got head and arm thrown over and over again by Conejo. And she's getting, you know, a lot of her fights are taking place 65% of the time in control time positions. So, you know, we could see Mallory Martin go to the grappling and win some minutes there. But, you know, when we look at these striking numbers, we do see a nice little advantage in the sample size, the small sample size that we do have for Vlismas. So I kind of feel like Mallory Martin could have success in the grappling in this fight, And Vlismas could definitely have some success in the striking. It just depends on where do we think it's going to take place. And we see that Vlismas has been taking place in control time position 64% of the time, while Martin a little bit less than that at about 31. So if Martin can kind of go to the grappling over and over again and win some minutes there, we could see her pulling off an upset here. But I do think as long as this fight stays standing, we're going to see Cheyanne with a little bit of an advantage here. If we look at the strength of schedule, Martin has fought the better competition, but neither one of these ladies has been fighting top-level competition. As we see, only 4 total fights for Martin opponents, only 1 for Vlismas opponents, and both of them are ratio below 1. So, Vlismas is a fairly big favorite here at about minus 185 right now, and Mallory Martin at plus 160. And Mallory training up there at elevation, if she can bring a grappling heavy game plan and the gas tank to back it up, I could see her pulling off this upset. It's going to be a very interesting fight. Like I say, both of these girls got a little bit of crazy in them. It should be fun to watch. I kind of like Mallory Martin at plus 160 here, and I do see a path for her if she goes to that grappling, and if her wrestling and top control has been as impressive as we saw it be in the Cyphers fight. We could see Mallory Martin have some success here and win this fight. I'm actually going to pick the dog here in Mallory Martin, pick her to win by decision. All right. And let's see, guys. Where are we? We've gotten through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights thus far. We've still got 9 more to go, and we're almost an hour into the show. I wanted to keep this under 2 hours today, so let's power through here. Jake Matthews versus Jeremiah Wells. Very interesting fight. And I was surprised to see that Jeremiah Wells is 35 years old. He got a very late start to mixed martial arts, starting at about the age 26, which was when his first professional fight. And that's in comparison to a guy like Jake Matthews, who started when he was 18. So definitely these guys are at different points in their life. Jake Matthews is 8 years younger. He's 2 inches taller, and it's going to be Jeremiah Wells who fights with a 2-inch reach advantage here. Jeremiah training out of Henzo Gracie, Philly, while Jake Matthews training out of Nexus in Australia. It's very important to mention that Jeremiah Wells' teammate is Sean Brady. That was Jake Matthews' last opponent. So Wells has known that he's been fighting Matthews for a long time, and they've had a very long time to craft together the perfect game plan to beat this guy, because Sean Brady, Jeremiah Wells' teammate, already gave the blueprint on how to beat Jake Matthews. And we've seen Jeremiah Wells go to that wrestling, use that top control, and he's very good at it. So it's going to be a very interesting fight. Jake Matthews obviously has the experience advantage here, about 90 more minutes of cage time. They've been a pro about the same amount of time, but it's Jake Matthews with 10 more professional fights and 14 more fights at the UFC level. So we do see about 165 more minutes in the UFC cage for Jake Matthews. So big experience advantage here for Matthews. And also, I'd say a good tail of the tape advantage here is he's going to be 2 inches taller and be 8 years younger here. And then we're going to see that both of these guys are finishing fights at a pretty nice clip, 65% for Matthews and 77% for Jeremiah Wells. Both of these guys are equal opportunity finishers. They can submit you. They can knock you out. Jake Matthews has been finished in 4 of his 5 pro losses, 3 by submission, 1 by knockout, and Jeremiah Wells has never been finished. If we look at the striking numbers, we don't have much here in terms of striking numbers for Wells. Matthews lands about 0.9 more significant strikes a minute than he absorbs. He's got a 45% striking accuracy, showing pretty good power here at 0.77% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. He averages 0.35 knockdowns per 15 minutes, and he's only been knocked down once in 15 UFC fights. So he's shown a really good chin and fantastic striking defense here at 62%. Jeremiah Wells, in his 1 UFC fight, landed about 1.1 more significant strikes than he absorbed. He did land a knockdown and only 21 significant strikes landed, and is averaging 2.73 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So that was against Warley Alves. And, Wells is kind of like, he's very explosive, but, there have been times, in particular, I believe it's the Guto in the set. Was it Guto that he fought? Vinicius de Jesus. He was very, very tentative in that fight. But then he came out against Mumia Abu De Ali like that dude owed him money and was banging his sister, because he knocked this guy out cold in the first minute. And then the same thing against Marco Smalman. He came out like a goddamn house of fire, did this guy. He knocked him down with the very first punch that he threw and just swarmed him. And I think he got that win in the second round. But Wells can be very explosive. And when he is that explosive and when he comes out that way, he's very difficult to deal with, because he's incredibly strong, incredibly explosive, and he has the grappling pedigree in order to be a big-time problem if he gets on top of you. And we did see that what happens when a good, strong grappler like Sean Brady takes down Jake Matthews and works from control time positions. We did see Jake Matthews really get exposed, but we don't want to get too far over our skis here, as we realize there's a difference between Jeremiah Wells and a 15-0 Sean Brady that just went through Chiesa. So we want to, discuss that and let everybody know that, this is a different opponent here. This is a different level of opponent for Jake Matthews. And Jake Matthews is the much more experienced mixed martial artist here. The younger guy, he's fought the way better brand of competition, and he's just been fighting a much higher percentage of his career up at this level. But man, is this Wells dangerous, you guys. He's very, very dangerous. Jake Matthews has a fantastic straight right that comes right down the pipe. He hits very hard, while Wells is very explosive, throws 100% power into all of his punches, but he's very sloppy. Sometimes you'll see him just throw with so much power that he'll knock himself off of his own feet or just go to the ground because he misses so bad. So Wells is pretty sloppy. Jake Matthews should be the much more composed guy. He should be the much cleaner guy. He should be the much more technical guy in this fight. But Jeremiah Wells is crazy dangerous, 77% finish rate. This is going to be very interesting. Matthews is coming from a long way away. Jeremiah Wells is going to have the game plan from Sean Brady on how to beat Jake Matthews. The question is, can he pull it off? Wells was 0 for 3 for takedowns in the Alves fight, but he also showed 100% takedown defense. And Jake Matthews' takedown defense, 66.67%. It's okay. It's not great, but, Jake Matthews has out-controlled his opponents at almost 2-to-1 ratio over 14 UFC-level fights. So, if Wells wants to take that Sean Brady path to victory, it's probably going to be a lot harder for Wells than it was for Brady. And then when we look at the strength of schedule here, we see that Jeremiah Wells, it actually looks like, because he beat Warley Alves, that he's got a better ratio and has fought the more experienced competition. But obviously Matthews has 14 UFC level fights, while for Wells it's only 1, and he took that fight on short notice. So yeah, definitely I'm going to give Matthews the strength schedule advantage. He's much younger. I like him in the tail of the tape, even though Wells has a 2-inch reach advantage. Matthews more experienced. Matthews is going to be the better, cleaner, more technical striker. And I think the grappling is going to be close. I do have to pick Jake Matthews to win this fight, but I am not betting him as a favorite. I think Jeremiah Wells is even live to finish this dude inside the distance because he's so explosive. But, if Matthews shows that really good 62% striking defense, if he shows the ability to move and stay on his bike while he's on the feet here, I think that he can get this job done. But like I say, if I'm betting this fight, I'm going with the plus money on Jeremiah Wells, because at plus 150, you guys, you can even get him at plus 170 on one book, which is Bet 365. That's where the value is, because Wells is a lot more explosive than Matthews. And as DFS by the numbers just brought up in the chat here, out of all of Matthews' wins, only one is still in the UFC. So we could take a little bit closer look at that before we move on to the next fight, you guys. So Matthews, I'm going to type in, let's do a search for, you know what, let's just hope we find it. I'm going to look for Jake Matthews here, and we can, yeah, there it is. Okay, so Jake Matthews guys that he's beaten. Deshaun Johnson, 0-2 back in 14. Wagner Rocha, 1-3. Akbar Areola, 1-3. Johnny Case, 4-2. Bojan Velikovic, 2-3. Li Jingliang, 10-5. Shinsho, the Animal Anzai, 2-2. Rostam Akman, the man with the hair shirt, 0-2. Emil Mek, 1-3, and Diego Sanchez, 19-13. So, yeah, not many of these guys still around. Jing Liang is still there, and nobody else, because we can't say that Diego Sanchez is still around. So, and then we see the losses to studs like Brady, Anthony Rocco Martin, who knocks out security guards and pisses on the security or on the casino floor. Absolute baller move. No fucking shame in losing to Anthony Rocco Martin. He can kick your ass. He can kick your security guard's ass. Andrew Holbrook, 2-3, probably his worst win. Kevin Lee, 11-7, and James Vick, 9-5. So, yeah, you guys, I'm picking Matthews to win the fight, but not really with any confidence at all. And I think the value, if you're just straight betting the money line here, would be on the plus money, plus 150 for Jeremiah Wells. All right, you guys. Whew, we got our work cut out for us today. 15 fights. What are you doing, UFC? I know we had a week off, but come on, man. Manel Kape against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Kape, 5 years younger, 1 inch taller, 2 inch reach advantage, and he's a southpaw, fighting out of AKA, while we got Erkin Kush for Zhalgas Zhumagulov in Kazakhstan. It's going to be Kape with a experience advantage in terms of amount of pro fights, but it's going to be Zhumagulov, who spent 113 more minutes in the cage as a pro. Kape been a pro for about 2 years longer. Both of these guys have 3 fights at the UFC level. Kape is a great finisher, you guys, finishing 15 of his 16 professional wins. 10 by knockout, 5 by submission. So he's an equal opportunity finisher too. While Zhalgas has a 57% finish rate, I think that would be 8 out of 14 wins. So I would say, probably 6 by knockout and 2 by submission. And then if we look at the combined losses for these guys, 11 combined losses, 1 of them by knockout for Zhalgas, 2 of them by submission for Manel Kape. So 3 of their 11 losses combined have come inside the distance. But Kape is a very good finisher. If we look at the striking stats here, Kape is landing 3.71 and absorbing 4.23, while Zhalgas has been better on the feet as he lands a little bit more than he absorbs at 4.21 to 4.09. Zhalgas getting out volumed by his opponents 10.3 to 8.58. But so is Kape, as he's getting out-volumed 8.32 to 7.77. Both of these guys striking accuracy between 48-49%. Kape's the guy with the power, but Zhalgas has never been knocked down in the UFC, and it's going to be Zhalgas who's better defensively at 60% compared to just below 50% for Manel Kape. Both of these guys kind of active with the wrestling. 7 takedown attempts in 3 fights for Kape. 14 takedown attempts for Zhalgas in 3 fights, but neither one of these guys is getting takedowns at a great rate here. 21% for Zhalgas, 28% for Manel, and both of these guys control their opponents less than 5% of the time, while getting out-controlled at more than a 2-to-1 ratio, both of them. So neither one of them is particularly efficient in the grappling exchanges, but both will go to the grappling. It's Kape who's got the better takedown defense at 80%. So, yeah, I would give Kape a little bit of a grappling advantage here because he does tend to go for takedowns. Even on the regional scene, you see him going for them. but he's also shown better takedown defense than Zhumagulov. So I have a feeling that if we see one of these guys get into control time positions, it'll be Kape. And then if we look at the strength of schedule, obviously it's going to be Manel Kape, who's fought the much better brand of competition here, as he's fought guys like Nicolau and Pantoja, while Zhumagulov is fighting, Paiva, Albazi, and Rivera. Much better advantage here for Kape here in the strength of schedule. So Kape's got much more power. I think in the grappling, it's going to be close. Kape's younger. He's bigger. I would just like to see Manel Kape make weight. It needs to be noted that, in his only UFC win, he missed weight by like 3 pounds. So I'd like to see Kape come back and make weight before, especially not, because you got to lay about minus 225 on Manel Kape to bet him right now. And at that kind of implied probability, I'd like to see that he makes weight and looks good on the scale because, potentially if this fight gets extended and Kape has a tough weight cut, this could be a lot closer than I think it will be. But the pick here, you guys, is going to be Manel Kape, and I think he's going to win it by decision. All right, you guys. The people's main event, Maki Pitolo versus Dusko Todorovic. Todorovic, 3 years younger, 3 inches taller, and it's going to be Pitolo with a 1-inch reach advantage. Todorovic fighting out of Serbia, Pitolo out of Hawaii. It's going to be Pitolo who's got the experience advantage here. 9 more professional fights and 100 more minutes in the pro cage, and about almost 3 more years as a pro for Pitolo. But we've got Pitolo who's got 2 more UFC level fights here and about 12 more minutes in the UFC cage. Both of these guys, good finishers. Dusko, a 90% finish rate. Pitolo with a 77% finish rate. And these guys are getting finished. In Pitolo's 8 losses, he's been finished in 6 of them. And in Todorovic's 2, he's been finished 1. So 70% of these guys' combined losses have happened inside the distance here. So that could be an interesting fight, doesn't go to decision bet. If we look at the striking numbers, we're going to see Todorovic is more accurate here at 54% in comparison to 44% for Pitolo. Pitolo showing better power. Both of these guys have a positive significant strike differential here, 0.5 significant strikes per minute. Positive 0.5 is the differential for Pitolo, while it's about positive 0.53 for Todorovic. It's just Todorovic that's more accurate, Pitolo more powerful, and it's been Todorovic who has been knocked down twice in 223 significant strikes absorbed. 48% striking defense for Todorovic, not good. He kind of just keeps his hands down and relies on head movement, and that head movement doesn't work all that well for him. Todorovic, the way that he fights, though, kind of lends itself to high action, high output fights because he's so unconcerned with being defensive. It usually makes for some bangers, and Pitolo has certainly been in those kind of fights as well. If we look at the grappling numbers here, Todorovic has attempted 20 takedowns, but I could feel like that was all in the Teddy Ash fight. The guy doesn't go sell out for the wrestling, so he's only getting takedowns at a 5% clip. He's out controlling his opponents 12% to 5%, but that's not really that impressive, seeing as he's out takedown attempting his opponents at over a 3-to-1 ratio, and he's only out controlling his opponents at about a 2-to-1 ratio. While Pitolo, his fights have been taking place in control time positions almost 50% of the time. He's getting takedowns at a good clip, and he's working a lot of control time too, but also not very efficient, as he's attempting 2 takedowns for every 1 that his opponent attempts, but he's still even getting slightly out-controlled by his opponents. And then if we look here at the strength of schedule, we'll see Pitolo slightly better here on the aggregate, and better wins for Pitolo. So I'll give Pitolo a strength of schedule advantage here. I will give Todorovic the tail of the tape advantage here, but Pitolo's more experienced. I think Pitolo and Todorovic are fairly close on the feet. They both hit very hard. Don't like Todorovic's defense, though. So I think Pitolo might even be the better minute winner on the feet. And then on, when it comes to the grappling, I think Todorovic is probably better on the ground, but it'll probably be Pitolo who has the better time getting it there. But when Todorovic did have a grappling advantage, like he did in the fight against the Tarantula or whatever the hell his name is, Quan Townsend, he got one takedown, and as soon as he got that takedown, he worked for the submission victory. So, I could definitely see, it was a knockout, but it was on the ground. Todorovic is good on the ground, and if he gets a good position over Pitolo, we could see Todorovic getting a submission win here, as we've seen Pitolo submitted 4 times in 8 losses. So I kind of like the fight doesn't go to decision for this one, you guys. Let's see where that one is sitting. Fight doesn't go to decision at -155. So it's a little bit juiced, sitting up around a 61% implied probability. I think this fight should finish inside the distance. I like the plus money on Maki Pitolo. I think it's going to be a close fight, you guys, a little bit closer than what the line is indicating here. If I had to bet it, I would take the plus money on Maki Pitolo. But in terms of who wins this fight, I feel like it's a coin flip. I'll pick Pitolo just for the sake of being on the side, saying that I think there's more value on Pitolo's money line than there is on Todorovic's money line. All right, where are we and how many fights do we have left? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more fights. And so this one was just added today, you guys. So let me wet the whistle here a little bit, you guys. I'm working hard for you today. But we got 48 of you guys hanging out live, 11:15 on a Tuesday night with your Uncle Weezy. I appreciate each and every one of you for spending your Tuesday night with me. God bless each and every one of you. And let's all be happy, healthy, finish off this year strong, make some money at UFC Vegas 44. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more fights to go. Darian Weeks against Bryan Barberena. A massive experience advantage for Bryan Barberena here, you guys. Barberena was supposed to fight Matt Brown, which would have been such a good fight, such a fun fight. But Matt Brown, unfortunately, got COVID. I think he's already tested negative for COVID and is ready to fight again as Brown, but they had to find a new opponent for him. They got Darian Weeks, who's only 5-0. So we've got Bryan Barberena, who's going to be 1 inch taller. The reach is going to be identical, and it's Darian Weeks, who's 4 years younger here. But Bryan Barberena with 18 more professional fights, over 200 more minutes in the professional cage, and about 9 more years as a pro for Bryan Barberena, and 12 more fights at the UFC level. So Darian Weeks only has 5 fights. He's making his UFC debut, and he's doing it on 5 days' notice. Darian Weeks has a 100% finish rate as a pro, 40% by sub, 60% by knockout. It is important to note that one of those submission victories was a submission to strikes. So you could say that he has 4 knockouts and 1 submission, but Weeks is finishing 100% of the time, while Bryan Barberena has finished 80% of his 15 professional wins, 12 of them inside the distance, 2 by knockout, 2 by submission, 10 by knockout. And then Barberena has been finishing 3 of his 8 losses, while Darian Weeks has never lost. So Bryan Barberena, obviously an experience advantage. Bryan Barberena, obviously with the strength of schedule advantage. Darian Weeks has a wrestling base, but this dude is a guy who uses his wrestling in reverse to keep the fight standing and to knock people out. And that's what he does. Darian Weeks hits like a fucking truck, you guys. And he's the younger guy. He's going to be twice as strong as Bryan Barberena here, 3 times as athletic, and he's got about 10% of the tread on the tires that Bryan Barberena has. And we know that Bryan Barberena was basically told by his doctors prior to his most recent back surgery that he would never fight again. And then somehow he got cleared to fight and was telling people, before the fight, saying, well, we'll just see how it goes. Yeah, Bryan Barberena, even though he's only 32 years old, has been through a lot. He's been through some absolute wars, and he's fought some of the toughest guys that the welterweight division has to offer. Let's take a look at it, because we don't have any stats on this guy that he's fighting. So I want to take you through Bryan Barberena's career here, you guys. Let's see if we can find him. There he is. So Bryan Barberena is 6-6 in the UFC. The guys that he's beaten: Anthony Aquaman Ivy, Jake Ellenberger, Joe Proctor, Warley Alves back in 2016. He derailed the hype train in Sage Northcutt, and then Joe Ellenberger. And the losses have been to guys like Chad Laprise, Colby Covington, Leon Edwards, Vicente Luque, Randy Brown. But then, which name doesn't fit? Laprise, Covington, Edwards, Luque, Randy Brown, or Jason Witt? Because that's the most recent loss. And Jason Witt's a good wrestler. And Jason Witt was able to take down Bryan Barberena 8 out of 18 times. And as a matter of fact, in Bryan Barberena's last 2 fights, he's faced 42 takedown attempts. So people are trying to exploit the takedown defense of Bryan Barberena, and there's a reason for that. Bryan Barberena's takedown defense is 58.97%. And I mean, like guys like Anthony Ivy that aren't really UFC level were even taking him down and holding him down. So even though his opponents were out takedowning, attempting him at a 10-1 ratio, they're only out controlling him at about a 2.5-1 ratio. So Bryan, even though he's been taken down a lot, he's fairly efficient. He gets back up. He makes you work for the takedown attempts, and he doesn't just lie there when he gets taken down. So, but the thing about Weeks is that he's going to be so much more dangerous on the feet, in my opinion. He's very, very explosive, and he hits very, very hard. I think that all the power is going to be on the Weeks side. And I also think because Darian Weeks has this wrestling base that he generally just kind of keeps in his back pocket, when we have seen him use it, and this is a dude who's training at Henzo Gracie Philly with guys like Sabatini and Brady, some of these killers, Darian Weeks might be able to go to the wrestling here. And I'm just flat out worried that somebody that has as many miles on tread on the tires as Bryan Barberena, somebody that's been coming off of 2 really bad surgeries, had doctors telling him that he would never fight again, that fighting a guy like Darian Weeks, even on 5 days' notice, is incredibly dangerous. I don't like this matchup for Bryan Barberena. The problem is, you guys, we don't have a line here. We don't even have an opening line. Let me refresh best fight odds and see if anything is dropped since the time the show started here. I don't think we have anything, you guys. Barberena Brown is what was still up there, but nothing on Barberena versus Weeks. So anyway, I'm going to pick Weeks here. I really liked what I saw in the tape in his fight against Craig Fairley. However, it's hard to get anything from it because Fairley took that fight on short notice. He came up a weight class, and he just wasn't on Weeks' level. I think Weeks was a -900 favorite going into that fight, but I think that's also a problem, is that I think Weeks has kind of gotten to this point where, they're not going to take his calls when they're trying to find this kid a fight. So now he has to step up to the UFC level to find somebody willing to fight him, because Barberena will fight anybody. But Darian Weeks was supposed to fight Josh Quinlan, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he had a fight here against Quinlan, which was supposed to take place for Contender Series. So it was going to be Quinlan against Weeks. That got canceled. That was September 7th that was supposed to happen. So I don't know which one of them pulled out, but this guy would have been on the Contender Series. Now he's getting a chance to step up against Bryan Barberena on short notice. Barberena, it's a huge step up for Darian Weeks, but he's the better athlete. He hits harder. He's the better wrestler. He's just got to make up this experience advantage and be the better man in the cage that night. And I think he's got all the tools to do it. I think he's really good on his way up. So, yeah, that's where I'm looking at, you guys. I'm going to pick the upset here in Darian Weeks, even though I don't know what the line is. And let's see here. All right, you guys, next fight, Brendan Allen versus the Action Man, Chris Curtis. So we've got Brendan Allen 9 years younger than the Action Man here, 4 inches taller, and the reach is identical. Chris Curtis is taking this fight on short notice. Chris Curtis will fight anybody at any weight class on 10 minutes notice. If you give him 10 minutes notice, it's enough for him to put on the cup, get a pair of shorts on, and walk out to the cage. That's why they call him the Action Man, because he'll take any fight, anytime. This guy loves to fucking fight. 35 professional fights for Chris Curtis. Brendan Allen is the biggest favorite on the card, but you cannot count out Chris Curtis. This guy is an absolute G. We see that Chris Curtis is going to be much more experienced here. So while Brendan Allen is the true middleweight and Chris Curtis really more of a welterweight, so it's going to be a huge size advantage for Brendan Allen. There is a big experience advantage here for Chris Curtis. He's got over 200 more minutes in the pro cage, 14 more professional fights, and really on the aggregate, the dude has fought just as tough a competition as Brendan Allen has over his career, as this guy Curtis was fighting the top levels of the PFL organization, guys like Magomed Karamov, Ray Cooper, and then he comes into the UFC and starches Phil Hawes in the first round. And 27 professional wins, 8 losses. Only 2 of his losses have come inside the distance. One of them was by knockout to Ray Cooper Jr., and it was the second time that night that Chris Curtis had fought. So, yeah, while Allen is a big favorite here, and there's a lot of reasons to like him, you should not count on Chris Curtis. This guy is totally game. He's ready to fight anybody. It's going to be Allen who has more UFC level fights with 7-2 and about 40 more minutes in the UFC cage. If we look at how these guys finish fights, Chris Curtis is a knockout guy, 56% by knockout, 4% by sub, while Brendan Allen gets it done more times by submission than he does by knockout. We got a overall 82% finish rate for Brendan Allen and 17 wins. So that's 14 of his 17 wins coming inside the distance. And that would probably be about 9 by submission and 5 by knockout. So very impressive finisher is Brendan Allen. Brendan's been finished in 2 of his 4 losses. Curtis has been finished in 2 of his 8 losses. 4 out of the combined 12 losses of these guys have come inside the distance. If we look at the striking numbers here, it's going to look, they're actually similar. Both these guys absorb more than they land. It's Chris Curtis who's much more accurate. It's Chris Curtis who's been more powerful. But it's also Chris Curtis who's better defensively, as Brendan Allen showing only 45% striking defense. Brendan Allen lately has been falling in love a little bit with his hands. That worries me against Chris Curtis, even though I think that, I would have no problem with anybody saying Brendan Allen's the better technical striker. He's been training at Sanford. He's been improving by leaps and bounds. And this guy's got 21 professional fights, and he's only 25 years old, is Brendan Allen. So the arrow's pointing straight up for Allen. He was fighting tough competition before he got into the UFC. And in the UFC, he's been fighting nothing but tough competition. I see why Brendan Allen is a very big favorite here, because he's very well-rounded. He's getting better. He's training at the right place. He's the bigger dude, and he's the more well-rounded dude, as his ground game is nasty, way nastier than Chris Curtis's. But the thing is, you guys, is that if Brendan Allen decides to do what he did in the Sean Strickland fight, in the Punahele Soriano fight, and just stand up with Chris Curtis, he's leaving the door open for Curtis to do what he's done over and over again, which is to get a flash knockout. Whether it was his Contender Series 3rd round hook kick knockout that Chris Curtis got, or whether it was the 1st round knockout over Phil Hawes when he landed that straight left that knocked him out. Brendan Allen would be wise to initiate the grappling exchanges here. But he's only attempted 11 takedowns in 7 fights. He's gotten 5 of them, so he's been efficient when he does choose to wrestle. He gets 1.29 takedowns for 15 minutes, and he attempts 1.55 submissions for 15 minutes. But he's, out controlling his opponents 27% to 25%. He can get sloppy on the ground. He can be reversed, but he also has the ability to finish fights with his submission game down there, as we saw in the Roberson fight, as we saw him get very close to submitting Chris Daukaus and very close to knocking out Chris Daukaus as well. So this fight will be close on the feet, but I do think that Brendan Allen, should he get this fight to the ground, will have a big advantage there and have a great chance to win minutes there. And I think if he's smart, he's going to sell out more for the wrestling than he would have against Soriano, against Strickland, even against Daukaus. Because Brandon, I would like to see him go after those wrestling exchanges a little bit more. Now, let's check this out, you guys. Very impressive. Chris Curtis's ratio is 4, but that's only in 2 fights. Brendan Allen's ratio, 2.62 with 6.71 total fights. So even in the brief tenure that he's had in the UFC thus far, he's fighting very good competition that's fairly experienced too. So the wins, very good for both guys, but Brendan's just a little bit better as he's fought the much more experienced competition. And then the losses for Brendan Allen coming to guys like Sean Strickland here. I'm picking Brendan Allen to win this fight. I think he has more ways to win this fight, but man, I am not counting out Chris Curtis. And if Brendan Allen falls in love with his hands a little bit too much and makes a mistake, he could get caught here. I think this line is too wide. I wouldn't recommend betting Brendan Allen at minus 360. My God. The best line we can find right now is Bet Online at minus 330. Chris Curtis plus 290. Chris Curtis by knockout plus 450. I'd like that to be a little bit juicier. Chris Curtis by submission plus 2,800. There's your lottery ticket. The guy's got 1 career win by submission. And then Brendan Allen inside the distance is anywhere from minus 120 to plus 150. So a pretty wide range of options there. But definitely Allen is a big favorite for a reason here. His grappling should be way better than Curtis's. And if Brendan sells out for the grappling and gets it to the ground enough to win enough minutes there, I think he should comfortably cruise to a decision victory over Chris Curtis. And because Chris Curtis has only been finished twice, once by submission, and the other one was a knockout where it was his second fight that night, I think some ways to get some value here is I think that Brendan Allen, if he does win this fight, will win it by decision because Chris Curtis is so hard to finish and because he's so durable. Brendan Allen by decision, you can get it plus 220 right now. I believe it's Caesars, and it's plus 150 on DraftKings. I think that might be the way to get yourself a little bit of extra value here. I don't think he's finishing Chris Curtis, so I think that would be a good way if you like Brendan Allen to get a little bit of value on the money line without having to go 3.5 units to win 1. Here you could do like 0.8 units to win 1.25. So yeah, the pick is going to be Brendan Allen, you guys, by decision. Okay, Crute Hill. We're an hour 30 in, and I've just got 4 fights to go. We're going to get this done in less than 2 hours. Let's go. Jimmy Crute against Jamahal Hill. I'm going to be doing a balls deep breakdown on this one as well tomorrow, so I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible. Crute 5 years younger. Jamahal Hill 2 inches taller and having a 5-inch reach advantage here. Jamahal Hill's a southpaw but fights out of both stances, while Jimmy Crute is an orthodox fighter. It's going to be Crute with 4 more professional fights. The cage time almost identical. Crute's been a pro for about a little over a year longer than Jamahal Hill, and he's got 2 more fights at the UFC level. If we look at how these guys finish fights, Jamahal Hill, 50% finish rate overall, all by knockout, while Jimmy Crute's a 75% finish rate. He's finished 9 of his 12 wins inside the distance, 4 by submission, 5 by knockout. So Crute's an equal opportunity finisher. He can knock you out and he can submit you, while Jamahal Hill relies on his hands to get the job done. In these guys' 3 combined losses, all 3 have finished inside the distance, which is a great, fight doesn't go to decision bet here, but you will see very soon that this fight is juiced to the tits in terms of the fight doesn't go. If we look at the striking numbers here, this is a very, very clear striker versus grappler matchup. If this fight stays on the feet, Crute's going to be in a shit ton of trouble. If this fight goes to the ground, Hill is going to be in a shit ton of trouble. So let's look at control time percentages. Jamahal Hill has never attempted a takedown and has had 14 attempted against him. He's given up 6 of them. He's got 57% striking defense. This is what's impressive, though, you guys, is that even though Jamahal Hill has been out takedown attempted 14-0 by his opponents are only out controlling him at a 6.4% to 3.25% clip. So Jamahal Hill, despite the fact that he doesn't try takedowns and that his opponents have been attempting about 3 takedown attempts per fight against him, he's done a good job at keeping the fight standing, which is where he wants it. But here's the thing. We talk about this being a striker versus grappler matchup, and we see that Crute is controlling his opponents 38% of the time and being controlled 19% of the time. So that's 57% of Crute's fights are taking place in control time positions. That's where Crute wants this one. And I think that as long as this fight is on the ground and in the grappling exchanges, the Crute's going to be very safe, very comfortable there, and have an excellent chance to finish the fight. So I am looking for Jimmy Crute to get this win here. I think this fight definitely finishes inside the distance, whether it's a first-round submission by Jimmy Crute or whether it's a third-round knockout for Jamahal Hill. I am a little bit worried about Jimmy Crute's cage IQ. I didn't like the fact that he didn't try to grapple at all against Smith until his legs shut down. And I do like the fact that Jamahal Hill knows who he is and prefers to keep the fight standing. Will he be able to stop the takedown attempts of Jimmy Crute, who's getting his takedowns at an 80% clip and getting 4.97 takedowns per 15 minutes and 2.07 submission attempts per 15 minutes? If Jimmy Crute fights like he did against Mihail Oleksiejczuk when he had a clear grappling advantage and went to that grappling from the very first second of the fight, I think he'll easily win this. If he fancies himself a striker and thinks that he can outbox Jamahal Hill, not only do I hope that he loses, I think that he will lose. I hope he gets his fucking head punted into the third row, because maybe then Crute will learn that he has a grappling advantage over most of the guys in this division. And if he wants to have long winning streaks, make a lot of money fighting, that he'll use that grappling advantage that he has, especially over guys like Jamahal Hill. He's got to grapple here, Crute. If he doesn't, he's going to get slept. It's Crute who's fought the better ratioed competition and the more experienced competition. The wins are better for Crute, and the losses are a little bit better for Crute as well. So, yeah, I am definitely giving Crute the strength of schedule advantage here. I'm giving Hill the tail of the tape advantage, Hill the striking advantage, Crute with a massive grappling advantage and a little bit of an experience advantage. And he's also the more diverse finisher. I'm picking Jimmy Crute to win this fight. First round submission, you guys. But if it gets out of that first round, I think it's going to be very close. And I could see Jamahal Hill getting a third round finish here, because Crute's conditioning is going to be a big issue here. He's going to have to push a wrestling heavy game plan in order to comfortably win this fight. And the longer he has to push that game plan, the more tired he will get. And if this fight stays standing for large swaths of time in the third round, I think Crute's going to be in trouble. Fight doesn't go to decision. One of my favorite bets on this card is a parlay piece, but I'm going to pick Jimmy Crute to win by first round submission. All right. And we got 3 fights left here, you guys. We're going to do a real quick story time with Uncle Weezy here. I'm going to tell you guys about the time that I met Clay Guida. When I was going back to school studying statistics, I was delivering pizzas for the finest pizza place in the world, Lou Malnati's, right here on the north side of Chicago. And I went to go deliver a pizza to somebody, rang the doorbell. The guy who answered, paid me for the pizza. And then he asked me, "Do you like mixed martial arts?" And I said, "Yeah, I love mixed martial arts." He goes, "Have you ever heard of Clay Guida?" And I said, "Yes, the Carpenter. He's from Johnsburg, Illinois. He's one of my favorite fighters. Love watching that dude bounce around the cage. Love the conditioning. Love the hair. Love the wrestling. Love everything about Clay Guida. I'm a huge fan. And he says to me, do you want to meet him? I said, yes, I definitely want to meet him. So he takes me upstairs in this house, and sure enough, it's Clay Guida and his boys hanging out. They ordered a bunch of pizzas. They were right around the corner from the Lou Malnati's that I was at. And Clay Guida is exactly like you would expect Clay Guida to be. His buddy is like, hey, the guy that's delivering the pizzas wants to meet you, Clay. And he fucking launches himself off the couch and kind of does that thing, that bouncing back and forth. He walks like that too. And came right up to me with a huge smile, shaking my hand, asking me my name, asking me, what I liked about MMA. Dude was super fucking cool. I got to take a picture with him on my phone. His hand was half the size of my hand. It was crazy how small this dude's hand was. And he had actually just injured the hand, so I could barely shake his hand. He's like, take it easy on my hand. But he was so cool. He was exactly what, like, Clay Guida is the genuine article. He was so fucking cool. Shout out to the Carpenter, one of my favorite fighters of all time. It was great meeting that dude, and he's exactly like you would expect him to be. Just from what you see on the television about Clay Guida, that's how he is in real life. Great guy. I'm glad I got the chance to meet him. But yeah, Clay Guida against Leonardo Santos, a couple of the OGs of the sport. So Clay Guida, actually the younger fighter here. He's 39 years old in comparison to Leonardo Santos is 41. Leonardo Santos, much bigger though. He's such a huge lightweight, 6 feet in comparison to Clay Guida, 5'7". So a 5-inch height advantage for Santos and a 5-inch reach advantage here. Both of these guys are orthodox strikers. Clay Guida out of Team Alpha Male. Leonardo Santos has been training at Nova União forever. 57 professional fights for Clay Guida to 23 for Leonardo Santos. So, yeah, we could say Clay Guida has a massive experience advantage, and he does. But he's also got a ton more tread on the tires here. So this is one of those cases where it's like the 41-year-old is actually younger in fight years than the 39-year-old in this case, because we do see the Clay Guida 57 fights, 31 fights at the UFC level, 365 minutes in the UFC cage. This guy has spent 6 hours of his life in the UFC cage fighting for his life. So yeah, 31 fights for Clay Guida, 9 fights for Leonardo Santos, almost 265 more minutes more in the UFC cage for Clay Guida. So just a massive experience advantage there. But we also have to look at that through the lens of once you're over 450 minutes of professional cage time, no matter what age you are, you got to believe that you're on the downside of your career. There's only so much the human body can take. And when you've been in the professional cage 550 minutes of your life, you got to believe that Clay Guida is coming towards the end of his run here, despite the fact that he's amazing condition, despite the fact he's really well-rounded, great boxing, great wrestling, does some great things still in the cage. You got to believe that Clay Guida is going to be hanging him up fairly soon here and taking his spot in the UFC Hall of Fame, which will be much, much deserved. Clay Guida with a 55% finish rate, Leonardo Santos with a 67% finish rate. And then we've got Clay Guida's been finished in his 21 losses, 58% of the time. So that would be like 12 losses, 10 of them by submission, 2 of them by knockout, while Leonardo Santos has been knocked out in 2 of his 4 professional losses. When we look at the striking numbers for these guys, they're pretty similar. Santos much more accurate, but really they both land less than what they absorb. They both have good power for lightweights, and they're both really good defensively. 59% for Santos and 63% for Guida. And because Guida's constantly moving in and out, left and right, up and down, bouncing, a lot of head movement, a lot of body movement, he's very hard to find. But by the same token, because he moves so much, he's also less accurate. At 33%, striking accuracy. You know, that's definitely in the couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat range. But then again, when Clay does hit you, he hits hard because you don't always see it coming. When we look at the grappling numbers here, Leonardo Santos, I believe, is a 7-time, maybe 6-time world jiu-jitsu champion. So, you know, the guy's a world champion. He's the top echelon of Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners in the lightweight division of the UFC. Clay Guida has gotten 70 UFC takedowns and 194 takedown attempts. Unfortunately, I don't think Clay Guida is going to be able to win minutes with his wrestling because you just don't want to take down Leonardo Santos, period. You're playing with fire if you bring this guy to the ground. He gets submissions from everywhere, but the problem with that is if you're not on the ground with him, now you're striking with the guy that's 5 inches taller, got a 5-inch reach advantage, and really does have a power advantage. This guy has shown so much power, and oftentimes we don't see great wrestling numbers here out of Santos. He's only gotten 7 takedowns in 9 fights, and he gets his takedowns at less than a 30% clip. But the problem is that he could do his work from his back as well. So sometimes he just knocks people down, and that's how he gets on top of you and then finishes you. But it's going to be Santos with a big striking advantage here, you guys, and it's going to be Santos with an even bigger grappling advantage here. What worries me is Santos's conditioning. As this fight goes into the 3rd round, Clay Guida will not slow down, but Leonardo Santos will. That being said, I still do believe that Santos, since he won't be necessarily wrestling that much and probably won't be defending that many takedown attempts, he probably won't be as gassed in this fight as he would be in some of the other ones, like, for instance, the Grant Dawson fight, where Grant was just shooting for takedowns. And, you know, it was a very grueling pace of that fight, which was taking place up against the cage the entire time. I don't see Clay Guida leaning on and wearing on Santos the same fashion that Grant Dawson did. When we look at the strength of schedule for these guys, it's a better ratio for Santos, but Guida's fighting the more experienced competition. And when we look at the wins, much better win-loss ratio competition for Santos, but it's really Guida once again fighting the more experienced fighters. And then, I would give Santos maybe just a little bit of a strength of schedule advantage, but Clay Guida's beaten 2 former champions. He beat Anthony Pettis before he was champion, and he beat Rafael Dos Anjos before he was champion. So Clay Guida has had some great wins, and the guys that he's lost to have been some of the best that the sport has ever seen. So the strength of schedule is actually pretty close, but I think Santos has got a big enough striking, grappling, and size advantage here, and so much more less tread on the tires here to feel real safe that Leonardo Santos can get this done any way he wants, whether he hurts Guida with a big straight shot, whether he takes down Guida and submits him, or whether he just outpoints him for 3 rounds. I do see Leonardo Santos winning this fight comfortably. I'm going to pick Santos to win by 1st-round submission, you guys. The co-main event, though, Brad Riddell against Rafael Fisayev. I'm going to cruise through this one. Fisayev, 2 years younger. He's a switch stance fighter. The experience almost identical for these guys. The UFC experience almost identical for these guys. Both of these guys primarily only finish their fights by knockout, and both of these guys have been finished in their only losses. Fisayev's been knocked out by Magomed Mustafayev, and Brad Riddell has been submitted in his only pro loss. If we look at the striking numbers, what the striking numbers tell me on paper here in a 4-fight sample size for Riddell and a 5-fight sample size for Fisayev is that Riddell will probably be the better minute winner on the feet. He lands a lot more than he absorbs. He's more accurate. He's just as powerful, and he has slightly better striking defense. And the reason that I believe that he can be better for the entire 3 rounds is that Fisayev really does slow down in the 3rd round, while we've seen Riddell carry a great conditioning pace into the 3rd round in fights that have been a lot more grappling-centric than Fisayev's fights have been thus far. So we've seen Brad Riddell, be really good on the feet, but then also mix in the wrestling here. Is he's shot for 19 takedowns. We don't think of kickboxers shooting for 5 takedown attempts per fight, but he's gotten 8 of them. He's getting his takedowns at a 42% clip and averaging 2 per 15 minutes. The control time, 14.86% for, and he's shown not great takedown defense, has Riddell being taken down at a 62.5% clip, or 62.5% takedown defense. He's being taken down almost twice as much as he's taken down his opponents, as he gets taken down 3.75 times for 15 minutes, but only takes down his opponents 2 times for 15 minutes. Fisayev, much less likely to go to the wrestling, as he's only attempted 4 takedowns in 5 fights. He's gotten 2 of them, but he's out-controlling his opponents 9% to 3%. So Fisayev has been much more efficient in terms of keeping the fight on the feet, which is where he wants it. He's got 100% takedown defense thus far in the UFC. He's stuffed all 18 takedown attempts that his opponents have tried against him. So I do see this fight taking place in the striking realm for the entire fight. I see it being very close. Fisayev will probably be throwing less volume, but with more power. He probably will land the more eye-popping strikes, but it'll probably be Riddell throwing more volume, and it'll probably be Riddell continuing to push that pace and throw that volume late into the fight, while Fisayev has shown over and over again that he slows down in the 3rd round. So I am going to go with Brad Riddell to win this fight by decision, you guys. If we look at the strength of schedule here, Riddell with a better ratio, but Fisayev has fought the more experienced competition. And the wins, better win-loss ratio for Riddell, but once again, the wins for Fisayev over the better win-loss ratio competition. The one common opponent is Magomed Mustafayev. Fisayev was knocked out by Mustafayev by a spinning hook kick, and Brad Riddell beat Magomed Mustafayev by split decision. It was his closest fight out of his 5 UFC fights. All of them went to decision. I am going to go with Brad Riddell to win this fight by decision. I think that 3rd round is going to be the biggest difference. I think it's going to be very close. I am not betting this fight, but it's going to be Brad Riddell. All right, we are to the main event, you guys. Rob Font versus Jose Aldo. Okay, this is a great fight. And in the link to, in the description of this video, I'm going to link to, and it's already there, the main event breakdown I did with DFS by the numbers on his channel. So go check out that for a in-depth look into this fight. Both of these guys are getting towards the old part of the bantamweight division here. Is Aldo's 35, Font's 34. Font's going to be 1 inch taller and have a 1 inch reach advantage here. It's Aldo with 14 more professional fights and about 180 more minutes in the pro cage. So Aldo's more experienced. He's been doing this for about 8 years longer than Rob has, and he's got 6 more fights at the UFC level, and even more importantly, at least 10 more fights that have been scheduled to go 5 rounds than Rob Font. So Aldo with a big experience advantage here, and Rob Font usually is a size bully at the bantamweight division. That will not be the case this time. Jose Aldo is going to be just as big as him. Both of these guys finish fights right around at a 60% clip. For Aldo, it's 60%. For Font, it's 63%. Font has only been finished in 1 of his 4 losses. It was by submission. Jose Aldo has been finishing 5 of his 7 losses, 1 by submission, 4 by knockout. When we look at the striking numbers here, it looks like Font is going to be the better minute winner on the feet when we look at the striking numbers on the aggregate, as he lands 2 more significant strikes per minute than he absorbs, while Jose Aldo is actually absorbing more strikes than he lands, which is wild for a former champion who's 12-6 in the UFC. He lands 3.5, but absorbs 4.05. Both of these guys striking accuracy sitting right around 44%. It's Font who's shown about twice as much power than Aldo has, in that Font's landed, I think, at 6 knockdowns, while Aldo has only landed 4. So 6 knockdowns in 12 fights for Font, 4 knockdowns in 18 fights for Aldo. So it's Font who's shown more power, especially at the bantamweight division. Defensively, both of these guys are very good. It's been Aldo who's only been knocked down 3 times in 18 fights. He's incredibly durable, and Rob Font has never been knocked down. If we go to the grappling stats here, Jose Aldo is the much more efficient, much better grappler. The problem is that Aldo never uses his grappling. Despite the fact that he gets his takedowns at over a 50% clip, despite the fact that his opponents have tried almost, like 3.5 takedowns for every one that Aldo has tried, Aldo has not even been out-controlled by his opposition. His takedown defense, Jose Aldo, is 89%. He's never had a submission attempted against him in 18 fights. Rob Font, though, has only 54% takedown defense, but he's done a very good job at getting back up when he does get taken down. He's only had 0.12 submission attempts against him per 15 minutes. So, maybe he's had 1 or 2 submission attempts attempted against him in 12 fights. So Font has been pretty good about not getting submitted, although he did get submitted by Pedro Munoz by guillotine, which was Jose Aldo's most recent win. That being said, I believe Jose Aldo lost to Marlon Moraes, while Rob Font knocked out Marlon Moraes in the first round. So they both have one opponent, common opponent, and then either one of them has gotten the better of it. So Font got the better of the Moraes opponent, and Aldo got the better of the Munoz opponent. So this is a very close fight, you guys. When we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, we see Aldo with the better ratio and the more experienced competition. So I'm giving Aldo the grappling advantage, the strength of schedule advantage, and the experience advantage here, while Rob Font's going to be a little bit bigger in size and probably be the better minute winner on the feet. But, Font's going to be using that great jab of his, while Aldo is going to be mixing it up using that jab, using those body punches, and using the leg kicks. I like Aldo's ability to be able to mix up his targets and throw with more power. I think he's very cerebral in the way that he spreads out his strikes and his attacks, uses both hands, uses all 8 limbs, and changes the targets from the calves to the thighs to the body to the head. All week I've been saying that I'm leaning Rob Font here, and I still think that I am. But if you put a gun to my head and made me bet this fight, I would be taking the plus 125, plus 130 on Jose Aldo. I think this is going to be a very close fight. And I think that if Jose Aldo tries to grapple 2 out of 5 rounds, he can easily win this fight. I'm going to pick Rob Font by decision. But I love the value here on Aldo, and I think if this plus money gets any bigger on Aldo, I might take a shot on him to win this fight by decision. I think it's going to be a great main event, you guys. Can't wait to watch it. We're an hour and 57 minutes into Tuesday night's Just the Tip. I am going to be giving a 4-leg parlay, but I'm going to give it out on Twitter as we get closer to the betting time, because I've been kind of flying by the seat of my pants giving you guys the 4-leg parlay at the end of the show here. So I'm going to forego that and check me out on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, and I will post what the 4-leg Just the Tip parlay is going to be this week. But I need to take a little bit closer look at all these lines and find something that's going to cash for you guys. Which leaves us with one order of business, you guys, the way that we always finish Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy. And that's with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. What's it going to be, you guys? How are we doing this? Which one of these guys is going to get their ass shaved? Which one of these guys is going to win in violent fashion this week? And when I'm looking at violence, one of the first ones that came to mind was the Murzakonov Vanderaa one, right? I mean, you got Vanderaa just being way bigger than Murzakonov, but Murzakonov being the kind of fighter that's finishing people in 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And Vanderaa is taking this one on short notice. So I could see it being violent either way. But because I'm not entirely confident that Murzakonov is going to have much for Vanderaa after like the 3.5 minute mark, I don't want to pick this fight. I'm pretty confident that Alex Morono gets the job done against Gall. I'm pretty confident that Smolka gets the job done here against Morales. I've got a 1-unit bet on Claudio Puelles over Greutzemacher. And I do like Alonzo Menifield to get the job done violently over William Knight, but I just see this fight being kind of close, actually. William Knight is very dangerous. you know, and then we looked at all these other fights. But you know what I came up with, you guys? And I think it's a little bit surprising. And it breaks my heart to do it because I'm a big fan of the guy that I'm picking against here. And I told you a great story about this guy. I met him face to face. But I had a big bet on Mark Madsen last time against Clay Guida. And I hate this matchup even more for Clay Guida against Leonardo Santos. You guys, this Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is going to be Leonardo Santos submitting Clay Guida in round number 1. We've seen Clay Guida be submitted 10 times in his pro career, and Leonardo Santos has much less tread on the tires. He's 5 inches taller. He has a 5-inch reach advantage. He has a big striking advantage. And if this fight goes to the ground, this guy locks up submissions. There's very little room for you to get out of them. So I believe that Leonardo Santos is going to finish Clay Guida in violent fashion early. I mean, we've seen Clay Guida shoot against Charles Oliveira, you guys. If he does something like that against Santos, he's going to get snatched up quick. And I could see Santos landing a big shot, putting Guida on his ass, and then either ground and pounding him or choking him out on the ground. Clay Guida, I think you're a Hall of Famer. You're one of my favorite fighters of all time. But as handicappers here, we got to pick the guy that we feel the safest about getting the job done. I want to get a good, safe pick for you guys here. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is going to be Leonardo Santos over Clay Guida. You guys, 2 hours and 1 minute. We did it. We got through all 15 fights. We busted our ass. We did our research. We've got all the numbers here. If you want to download these numbers, I make them available in the description of this video. Go down there and click on matchup template. You can download this. Use it to make all of your gambling decisions this week. I got tail of the tape experience, finish stats, striking stats, offense and defense, grappling stats, offense and defense, strength of schedule in wins, losses, and overall, and the last 5. All the information that you need in order to make the best gambling decisions possible. Please download it for free. Please leave a thumbs up on your way out. I am trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on Uncle Weezy's channel by the end of this year. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet and you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. I'd like to thank all of you guys for spending the last 2 hours with me, your host, Uncle Weezy, here on Just the Tip. God bless each and every one of you guys, and let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks this Saturday for UFC Vegas 44. I will be back tomorrow with not one, but 2 Balls Deep breakdowns right here on my channel. Look for a Balls Deep breakdown on Claudio Puelles versus Chris Greutzemacher, and then look for a Balls Deep breakdown on Jimmy Crute versus Jamahal Hill, 2 of my favorite fights this week. You guys, thanks for hanging out. Have a fantastic night. I'm going to finish up my beverage. I'm going to put some timestamps on this video. Thank you, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out.